Hi, my name is Kirk Hamilton, and this is the Staying Healthy Today show. This is a show where we're bringing key experts in the fields of nutrition, prevention, integrative medicine, or we talk about topics, or I talk about topics that I've gleaned through the many sources of literature over the last week. And it's hard to keep up, or it's hard to pick out what to share because there is so much. And yeah, I probably get criticized because I have links to so many different things and write about so many different things, and maybe don't focus on one topic, but I do my best to give the pulse of what I think is happening in kind of wellness. But wellness includes not just the individual, the taking of the vitamin, the exercising. Again, I come back to as I ended last uh, report that the world. So we're kind of in the same boat. We've had you know the Iran-Israeli war essentially really continues with the tension. We had the bombings of the nuclear sites and the potential of it escalating, which goes up and down, seems to. My prayer that it doesn't. Um, so we have that going on. And then at the same time, we have more individually controlling or things that we can control. And as I was gleaning through the literature, I'll go through those and then end it all with how I think we can put it together. But I came across some very interesting articles on vitamin C and not only adrenal hormones. And I frequently tell people that one of the highest concentrations of vitamin C in the body is in the adrenal glands. And that is true. It helps produce the adrenal hormones. It is a powerful antioxidant to protect the adrenal gland from damage. It helps reduce stress in the individual. So very, very important adrenal glands. And in lifestyle medicine or integrative medicine, many times we talk about adrenal fatigue because that gland does so much. It helps raise blood pressure. It helps suppress inflammation, which is a never uh, ending job. It stimulates the enzyme that breaks down histamine, so it's good as an antihistamine. It's good as a wound healer. It's good in cancer. So make many links here to articles that relate to vitamin C and hormones, just hormones in general. It's important in the production of estradiol. It's important when it's low in infertile men. So there are some interesting links to topics about those issues. And then there's some pretty powerful information from Japan about a specific famous researcher who's collected data in Japan on the deaths from the COVID vaccine. And it seems like, well, we're definitely in an information war, but there's two alternative universes. There's the ones where I listen to these esteemed uh, researchers that were formerly at academic institutions. Let's say Peter McCullough, Pierre Corey, Paul Merrick, and many others that are very traditional physicians, and yet now they've been excoriated or excommunicated, so to speak, by their institutions. And so on one side, they're coming up with the science and the data that shows that these vaccines are harmful. The spike protein is it's hard to believe it wasn't made as a bioweapon because you pick the most destructive part of the vaccine to tell our body to make, or messenger RNA tells our body to make the spike protein, a little altered spike protein that you can't get rid of. And it has so many toxic effects, from uh, cancer genesis to clotting, and which leads to one of the classic things that we've heard about. And there's another story of a conference of or collective get together of embalmers, and the big white fibrous clots that when they're embalming that they find. And there's an article on that. Um, then Alzheimer's. I always like to do Alzheimer's because memory is probably one of the biggest topics that people are concerned about. And there's the usual, and so I always want to bring up the simple things because it's very hard for people when they start to lose their memory, their spouses are trying to take care of somebody, to think about taking the 17 nutrients and the hormones and doing remediation of their home for environmental toxins such as mold. But there are basics: exercise and sleep. That's my weak point is sleep because I do this stuff. It's not because I can't sleep. Um, then there was a series of nutrients. Dr. Russell Blaylock, I believe, a neurosurgeon, came up with 7 nutrients that he wrote about: curcumin, quercetin, T catechins, omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin E, luteolin, and magnesium. He writes about them and their value in neuroprotection. And then we know about olive oil. There was another article, and then exercise and sleep. Pelvic floor exercise is a very uh, uh, common treatment for a difficult problem of loss of bladder control in females. And one of the things, so we do bioidentical hormones, and so you'll do vaginal hormones, and I don't use just estriol cream. I use estradiol and DHEA and testosterone in the vaginal cream, and it works very well. But you always want to add that with exercise. And so there's another thing that we might, or I've seen done. I do shockwave therapy for many musculoskeletal conditions, uh, and shockwave therapy is pulse sound waves by different means. And anyway, one of the conferences I went to, they were using shockwave therapy to treat bladder, increased bladder frequency and urination in females. And they do it both intravaginally, and then they do it from the abdomen down. And shockwave therapy has been shown to increase angiogenesis, stem cells, break up fibrous tissue, and stimulate neuronal uh, activity. So that's something we use, and but that can be used with the pelvic floor exercises, and we might do that. Then there's always some uglies, microplastics in the blood, which is like we have these things going around in our blood from the environment. It's pretty intense. And then I spend a lot of time, because I see and work with cancer patients, collecting data on fenbendazole, mebendazole, and ivermectin as repurposed drugs in cancer. And the William Mackises of the world, especially him and Kathleen Ruddy and others, they just do wonderful work in showing the legitimacy of those 3 medicines. So we have more links to those kind of things. Um, COVID vaccine, the spike protein, they found it in the brain some 17 months later in brain arterial tissue. That's the other thing I have. I made it was a mistake of getting the 2 vaccines, because I never get vaccines in my 43, 42 years of practice. I never got vaccines, and I chose to do 2 of them just because I knew there'd be lockdowns, and I thought it wouldn't hurt me. I was a little, I wasn't as knowledgeable as I am now about the vaccines. I took my precautions of IV vitamin C before and after, and vitamins and such, but I didn't have a per se reaction at the moment. But I know that I have still some spike protein quantitative antibodies between 6 and 7,000, and that did that relate to my colon cancer that I had starting in, well, it's probably before that, but September of 23, and had the tumor removed in January of this year. And fortunately, I'm still doing some repurposed drugs. I'm not doing chemotherapy, and but did that vaccine still have, increase the risk to that? I think personally it's other things, but that's always there, and then you can measure it. So I'm measuring it, and yes, taking the spike protein nutrients, um, which are the classic ones, are nattokinase, curcumin, or turmeric, and bromelain. But you can throw in a whole bunch of others, NAC, in fact, and fasting. So I just got finished with the 5-day. Well, when I go to wake up tomorrow morning, it'll be 5 days of fasting mimicking diet, the Walter Longo version. Well, he's the founder, and that can help scavenge up, hopefully, spike protein and other uh, impurities in your body. So I'm on day 5 of that, and so wake up tomorrow morning, get something to eat. So the newsletter's got a ton in it, but I'd like to close with kind of 2 things, or one thing in particular. So part of my cancer journey, I came across Dr. Joe Dispenza, a chiropractor who cured himself of a very traumatic back injury. I think it was T8 to L4 or 5, just completely destroyed, being hit by an SUV while he was coming doing the last leg or a leg in a triathlon. And anyway, he was not supposed to be able to walk, and or had to have major surgery, Carrington rods and such. And he cured himself by doing mind body meditation imagery, whatever you want to call it. So I've followed his work serendipitously. Some people came into my life, and I have over from November of 2023 till this time, but especially till the end of December of 24. I went to probably 8 of his 4 to 7 day seminars, and I saw people and practice very intensely, and still do. Got to get up tomorrow morning early before I go to conference and meditate like I do every morning. But the whole concept of changing your energy and frequency. And what's really unique about Dr. Joe's work is that he's working with, or he has worked for several years. I'm not sure exactly how many, 4 or 5 or 6, with the University of California, San Diego Department of Anesthesia. And I can tell you there's more science there, heart rate variability, brainwave patterns, um, epigenetics, microbiome. They've used functional MRIs to measure the effects of meditation. So he's trying to put the science into meditation to find out a better formula to teach people how to change their energy and frequency. We live in a three-dimensional world. I can see you, see my computer. That's three-dimensional, but above the speed of light, we can't see it. But we have MRIs. I always share with patients, look, there's an MRI, there's CT scans. You don't see those wavelengths, but they're there. And the higher we go, the belief is that we get closer to oneness or God or whatever you want to call it, and all things are possible. And I have seen on stage 3 breast cancer patients, stage 3 and 4, gone through chemo radiation, um, pretty beaten up, and eventually get into Dr. Joe's work. And it doesn't happen overnight. Every once in a while, someone does, but it doesn't happen overnight. And they work at it for months to change who they are. I sat next to, I'll never forget one conference, I sat next to a gentleman, an Indian gentleman. Well, just ask him why he's here. And he says, as an engineer, and the quantum physics of this makes sense to me. And I, chatted a little further, and I said, did you have an illness? And he goes, yeah, I had brain tumors. And I couldn't take any more chemo and radiation. And I was going to die. I mean, I'd rather die before that. So he got his house in order, talked to his wife where the finances were, and he just busted out and searched the internet, and you know, opportunity when you're looking. And Joe Dispenza's work came, and he he changed and cured himself. So I've worked at that of transforming me, my thoughts and energy, and thoughts and emotions, because those are energy and frequency. And the basic is, you have 60 or 70,000 thoughts a day. 95% of those today are from yesterday. So you're kind of repeating the same old life unless you change and recognize your thoughts and change them. So that's what I've been working on, and I feel good now. I'm healthy, and I believe I'm cancer free. We'll see with the follow-up PET scan in August. Not the PET scan, excuse me, CT. But so far, when they took out the tumor, it was a big tumor. After a year and a half, it was there, it'd been there all that time. And after they took it out, there was one node, and I got that, and there was no spread, but there never was any spread. And I've been taking all that time a variety of repurposed drugs. I've experimented with pretty high doses of ivermectin, probably higher than anybody that I can think of. And so what's done what? I had nutrients, I had IV vitamin C, I had the ivermectin, fenbendazole, mebendazole, you name it, and tons of meditation. And you can look at it any way you want. But the reason I bring that up is because I'm actually going to health practitioner seminar tomorrow uh, that Joe Dispenza is doing. But this weekend he's making the film, the documentary called The Source, free. And you can go and sign up at sourcethefilm.org. And I would highly recommend it. It's been out, but they added some more researchers interviews. And what's unique about that is it kind of starts off as maybe like a Tony Robbins like seminar, you think, And then it gets into the scientists, and they interview 6 or 7 researchers from the University of California, San Diego Department of Anesthesia, and there's science there. And that's what it's a very nice combination of case reports of individuals. You'll see them. There was a neurologist who cures himself of multiple myeloma. There's a young lady who had, I think, 20% lung function in both lungs, and she cures herself of cystic fibrosis, gets up and walks out of the wheelchair. Um, uh, there's a variety of case studies there. A drug representative who had her thyroid removed from extreme life-threatening hyperthyroidism, and the thyroid grew back, and the surgeon was like blown away. So I don't mean to say that you just, sit down and breathe or go through his meditation formula, which is different. It's more like how would I describe it? I would describe it as a guided imagery almost. It's an intense between meditation, guided imagery, and breathing. But I think I bring it up not because of the curing part right now, but one of the biggest fundamentals is, as much as I'm an information junkie, and what happens is you tend to, end up looking at bad things like, the COVID vaccine and the censorship and the war. So my image, the goal for me is to image the best outcome with the emotion that I would have if it occurred. So, for example, if I pulled off the fax machine in our medical office my CT scan, and boom, abdomen or large intestine, hepatic flexure, nothing there, totally perfect. What would be that emotion? Joy, relief, whatever. So that's what you're trying to embrace in your meditation, to future that into your life. And so right now, and I go off and on that, but I work at that. But right now, the war, Israel and uh, Israel and Iran, or Ukraine and Russia, or us against the communist Chinese. You can think of all the dire scenarios, but one of the things I've been imaging in my meditation is, Trump and Putin just talking, getting it done. We stop, you know, we stop funding Ukraine, the war stops. And there's a positive outcome and lives are being saved. And I think that's when I've seen a Joe Dispenza do these worldwide walking meditations. That's pretty powerful, pretty powerful. So that's what I'd like to end on tonight, is that a positive note that we can create our future, and to image in whatever you're struggling with a good outcome. And how would you feel with that good outcome? And that's what you want to embrace, not just the picture, but the emotion. Emotion is energy and frequency. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye and good night. Got to get up early. Um, this is Staying Healthy Today show, and I hope you got something of value from this. Talk to you soon.